Hello, I'm Scarlett Brown. I'm from Dynamic Boards and we advertise non-executive director roles. I'm here with Meena. Meena is going to talk to us today about an opportunity that's come up at Origin Housing for two new non-executive directors. Meena, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to meet you.
No worries, Scarlett.
So tell us a bit more about your role. I understand you're a new non-exec to Origin Housing. Tell us a bit more about it and what it's been like over the last year since you joined.
Yeah, so in board terms, a year is still quite new, but time has really just kind of flown by. Really enjoyed the experience so far. Origin has a fantastic management team and a fantastic board. So I was new to the industry. So
Fantastic.
Origin took a little bit of a risk in hiring somebody not from housing, and I know that can be a challenge for a lot of people coming to the industry. But I had a fantastic induction. The management team spent a lot of time with me and getting me up to speed with all of the jargon associated with housing. And the governance lead was super helpful in terms of just pointing me in the right direction of some of the industry stuff. So the NHF, which is the National Housing Federation, has a ton of stuff for new board members. So yeah, so it does feel, it's funny you calling me new, but it does feel as if I've been with the organisation for some time. I guess my only regret is actually because I joined during COVID, I haven't had a chance to actually visit any of the offices just yet. But I'm
Of course.
hoping to do so soon.
Absolutely, that must be really strange. And what first attracted you to join Origin or to become a non-exec on a housing board? What was it that brought you to that?
So the first thing is I had actually spent about 10 years outside of the country. So I'd spent some time in Dubai and then Singapore and Malaysia, and so I was actually using the non-exec route to reconnect with the local community. And Origin is a lot of the kind of stock that Origin has is actually literally just down the road for me. And so it felt as if it was a really good fit in terms of me kind of getting to know the community, reacquainting myself with the community, while hopefully doing something a little bit more meaningful and using the HR skill set that I had in a very different way.
We speak to people who get into non-executive roles for all sorts of reasons, but that kind of connection with the community, and that must be something that's that feels so real when you're working in the housing sector, right?
Oh, for sure. I think the highlight of my time so far has to have been the little time that I spent with 3 or 4 of our tenants when I had to kind of call them. And I think it was just before Christmas or maybe around Christmas, but it was just fantastic. The impact that the Origin actually had on them, and not just in terms of the housing, but also the community around them. So I remember one 71-year-old who loved his house, has lived in there for a long time, but his main thing was, look, actually because of COVID the community centres closed down, and that's where I used to go and do quite a lot of dancing and jazz, singing jazz and stuff. So it really did kind of bring it home to me in terms of the impact that housing actually has.
Absolutely, and being able to make that difference is really why we do it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And tell me a bit more about the board and what the board's responsible for, and who else you're sitting on the board with.
Yeah, so I mean, the kind of the governance answer to why the board exists is really for 3 things. One is to obviously keep tabs on the exec team. Secondly, to make sure that the organisation remains viable, and from a financial perspective, and the housing sector is pretty challenged in that space. It has been pretty challenging in that space over the last kind of few months. And the third bit, which is probably what I'm more closely connected, is the strategy and the culture of the organisation, and just being the custodians for that. So I kind of play out those 3 roles with a pretty interesting bunch of people coming from all sorts of angles. So we have people from the NHS, we have people from the housing sector, individuals who are like super detailed in terms of governance, so those that are interested totally in the financials. So it's a really cool mix. And we also have from a couple of the tenants actually represented on the board. So one of the board members is actually a tenant of ours, which is, and he provides such a fantastic perspective on what we're doing on every single agenda item, but looking at it from a tenant lens, and that's super helpful and really adds to the richness of the conversation that we have.
Yeah, I'll bet that diversity of thought really around that table must be fantastic. And tell me more about Origin itself. Whereabouts are you based, and how many residents? What's the size? That kind of thing. How big is the organisation?
Yeah, so in terms of financial terms, it's probably about 50 million in terms of turnover. We're coming up to about 7,000 homes in and around Greater London, but it does cross a number of different boroughs. But the head office is in Euston, so pretty central. Although I've yet to see it.
I was going to say, and are you guys going to be virtual meetings for the foreseeable, I imagine?
Well, we're trying to do a bit like a little bit like everyone else, trying to do a bit of a hybrid, in that having the committee meetings actually online, and trying to kind of get together for kind of board meetings in person. So fingers crossed that it's our first official strategy day in a couple of weeks' time, where I actually get to meet the amazing people I've been spending the last year talking to in person.
I find the weirdest thing is everybody's either taller or shorter than you thought they were going to be.
It's amazing how that happens. I have so many people who told me, I thought you're a lot taller than I thought you were going to.
I get that a lot as well. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me more about what the board's looking for with these two new recruits.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of positions. So one is somebody who has a real finance background to join the audit committee. And the other one, we're looking for somebody more from the commercial housing sector. As we all know, there's a ton of new legislation, ton of regulation actually hitting the sector. And we want to make sure we're in the best place possible. So that second role is really to help us with our ESG strategy, our sustainability agenda, and really, how do we deal with the complex issues of kind of climate change? And that individual will join the investment committee. So two fabulous roles. And I think that so that's technically what we're looking for, but more broadly, we really like to kind of hear from candidates that are kind of new to the sector. I'd love to be joined by somebody that actually comes from it from a different perspective. That would be amazing. And already more than half of our staffing population is kind of female, and 22% are actually black and ethnic minority. So we're doing well from a representation perspective. But we could always improve that. So we're really looking for applications from all sorts of kind of candidates. It would be amazing to kind of get a super diverse slate.
And like you say, there isn't any requirement to have worked in housing before, or even to have been a director before. That's right, isn't it?
No, yeah, true, and yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely a proof of concept in terms of not understanding housing, getting up to speed with that. But also, I was a pretty new non-exec as well, so I'd only spent maybe about 6 months or so in a different role when I joined the board of Origin. So yeah, totally testament to you can come into the sector and play and make a really significant contribution without having a whole load of non-exec experience or even housing experience.
That's really great to hear. I know it can be an intimidating thought to join a board at the beginning and to not have come from that background. So good on you. And I really hope that there are people who will consider it. And I mean, coming from that perspective, having recently joined the board, sort of what's the one thing that you'd say to people who maybe are considering whether or not to apply for this role, or whether it might be right for them, or even becoming a non-exec for the first time?
Yeah, so I think the first and foremost, I'd encourage everyone to apply. And just going through the application process is amazing how much you learn about yourself through the process. So, obviously we're working with initially reaching out to you and your team, but putting your profile together, assessing Origin as a potential employer. So the first thing I'd say is actually don't hesitate to apply. The second thing I'd say is there's a super strong induction program, both internally and the regulator, surprisingly, is so keen to kind of have to bring lots of different people to the sector. So a really supportive regulator that puts together a whole load of content. So don't worry about induction and understanding all the acronyms and all that kind of stuff. Trust me, that half of them they don't know it themselves either. So I keep kind of asking the kind of random questions. What does that mean? And keep doing that. And then the third thing is the Origin team are just been super supportive and inclusive. We have a really amazing executive team. They are aspiration. I always feel like Origin is one of those organizations that is punching above its weight, in that everyone you meet, you can really sense that. So they absolutely do an amazing job in terms of just the kind of day-to-day responsibilities, but they always bring something extra to the picture, which I love about the organization. So yeah, so come and apply.
Well, that's it. I mean, that is the biggest message, really, isn't it? Is come and apply. Meena, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for talking us through your role at Origin. And we'll leave everybody with that. Thank you so much. Please do think about applying. Applications are open and they're looking for 2 fantastic new non-execs. So perhaps it could be you. Meena, thank you for joining us today.
No problem, Scarlett. Thank you.